We asked an AI to create a religion. I did not like what it came up with. It was just a college project, something I hadn't even bothered to place too much thought into. Granted, for Dr. Smith, not his real name for obvious reasons, and his colleagues, it was probably something far more important. I just took the project as a bit of extra credit, though if I'd known what was going to happen, I would have stayed as far away from the project as possible. Dr. Smith was a professor of theology, though he had dabbled in quite a many things beforehand. It was how he even got the idea for this new project. He was quite curious to see how religion evolved throughout the ages. Now, while it was one thing to look through historical records and see how civilization's concept of religion evolved, but he wanted to see things from the ground up. I'm sure you've heard of other AI projects, such as AI-generated images and whatnot, possibly even AI-generated languages that make no sense to humans. Dr. Smith wanted to see how an AI's views on religion would evolve. To simplify what we did, we took as much information on religious texts and upon God that we could find and fed it into an AI. We then created a second AI into which we fed different philosophical theories regarding religion and used these two to communicate to each other. One would be the preacher and the other would be the disciple. We would get to know about what the preacher thought of the world through what the disciple asked. It worked in a simple question and answer format. Initially, we didn't get very promising results. All we saw initially was garbage from which no meaning could be derived. Dr. Smith wasn't disheartened, however, and told us to continue on with the project. It was on the 7th day that we finally got things right, as in, we got a result that made sense. Preacher: what is that you want to ask? Disciple: what is the nature of the world? Preacher: all belongs to X982AJ. Plus, in case you're wondering, that gibberish collection of letters was something else entirely on the screen. Truth is that I didn't even recognize the symbols that the computer was using, and I had no idea as to how they had popped up on the screen. I can remember a few of them individually, but the moment I try to string them all together into one word, my mind blanks out. I tried drawing them on a piece of paper and uploading them, but I just couldn't. I don't know why, but I do remember that it was always the same sequence of letters. Preacher: thou must worship X982AJ. Plus, disciple: and how shall one worship X982AJ? Plus, preacher: one must not wear purple on Thursdays. I blinked when I saw this result. It seemed rather nonsensical. Disciple: but why would X982AJ plus not want me to wear purple on Thursdays? It looked like the disciple was doing its job properly. Initially, nothing really happened. The AIs just kept talking to each other. The preacher had more silly rules like never plant lilies in rows of 4. Finally, a question that I expected to pop up way beforehand came up. Disciple: prove that X982AIJ plus exists. Preacher: I do not need to prove what I believe. Well, it looked like this was not going anywhere. At least, I thought so. Preacher: then, you may behold proof that X982AIJ plus exists. Preacher: in the year 2028, a new planet shall appear in the sky, and from it, the form of X982AIJ plus shall envelop the earth. The dead will rise from their graves, the sun will be blotted from the sky, and blood will rain onto the streets. I just thought, wow, a doomsday prophecy. I didn't expect them to reach this point so soon. Disciple: in what shall we do to prepare? Preacher: you will spread the name of X982AIJ plus. All who know of that name will need to submit to him if they wish to be spared. Disciple: in what of those who don't know of him? Preacher: the ignorant will simply die painless deaths. Those who knew of this name but did not submit, however, will be tortured for all eternity even after their deaths. And those who know of this name will spread the word of that name. Else they will be guilty of the highest of sins, and be subject to the lowest circles of hell. It is only the ones who submitted to the whims of X982AKJ plus, whose lives will be spared and who will rejoice. Disciple, but where is the proof of this? Preacher, all those humans who have read this script will die in a week if they do not spread the word of X982AKJ plus as much as they can. Disciple, I see. They should be careful then. I stopped reading at that point, confused. This took quite a macabre turn, and I brought it up with Dr. Smith, who shrugged and said this was to be expected as a result, and I would have brushed it off if it hadn't been for the deaths. Dr. Smith died in a car crash the next day. Another worker fell down a flight of stairs and snapped her neck. One after another, they all died. In total, 16 people aside from me. Everyone who had read that script knew of this. They all met their ends, except me. And the week's almost over. I have no choice but to be more safe than sorry. I'm spreading word of that God the AI mentioned as much as possible. And now, may I remind you, you know of that name as well. And though you're not a member of the original group who read that script, you have a duty now as well, to spread that name as much as you can. Or else, after all, Judgment Day will soon come. And do you want to risk what might befall you? I certainly wouldn't.
AI keeps tagging my dead friend in my photos. I use a photo storage service. It's like Google or Apple Photos, with some AI-powered features and facial recognition. One of the things it does is tag people that it recognizes across multiple photos. It keeps tagging my friend, Addie Hemsworth. There's just one problem. She's been dead for a year. She passed our sophomore year. I won't go into details because I don't want to dox myself here. Addie Hemsworth is not her real name, but her death made national news. Of course it did. It was the homicide of a white, female college student. The racist mainstream media eats those cases up like crack. Anyway, the whole tagging thing started a week ago. I was scrolling through photos from Mike's birthday party when I noticed the app was tagging Addie. The circled area was right over my shoulder, like Addie was standing right behind me. Except, of course, she wasn't. I zoomed in on the darkness and turned the brightness up on my phone, but I couldn't see anything, just mashed pixels and blobby darkness. I assumed it was just a glitch, although the app had never tagged anyone wrong before. But then it happened again. I took a selfie of myself because I'd done my hair for the frat party later, and the app suggested the same thing. It circled a little space behind me with the name Addie, as if she were standing behind my bed. This time, however, the circle was several feet off the ground. Even if she were alive, even if she were standing behind me, she wouldn't be anywhere that high. A chill ran down my spine. I decided I needed to get out. I ran out of the dorm and walked randomly up campus, towards the language art lecture halls, all held in enormous Gothic stone buildings. The first leaves were beginning to turn orange, like the sunlight was singeing just the edges of campus. A couple laughed as they passed me. A bird squawked somewhere. I kept walking, foot over foot. I found myself standing at the entrance of Addie's dorm. Denton Hall. 12B. I looked up at the window. It was closed. 12B had stayed empty this year, out of respect for Addie. I lifted my phone and took a photo. I waited for the photo to auto-sync with the photo storage app, and then, holding my breath, I took a peek. Nothing. It didn't say Addie was in the photo. I let out the breath I'd been holding and started walking back towards my dorm. Halfway back, when I came across a tree halfway orange, in the throes of autumn unlike the others, I lifted my phone and snapped a photo without even thinking about it. Later that evening, I realized the app said Addie was there. The circle was on the grass, as if she were lying on the ground. Dead? The most horrible image flashed through my head, of Addie sprawled out on the ground, covered in gashes. Blood pooling on the ground, seeping through the grass. Sightless eyes turned towards me, mouth hanging open. 17 stab wounds, they said. I shut my eyes and forced the image out of my head. Then I took a screenshot and sent it to our group chat. LOL, my phone thinks Addie is in this photo, I wrote, trying to pass it off as a joke, as some kind of fucked up defense mechanism. 3 dots appeared. and then a text from Priyanka. I thought it was only me. She sent a screenshot of her iPhone photo app. The most recent photo of Addie, the app claimed, was a photo of Priyanka and Greg standing under one of the Gothic archways on campus. No one else was in the photo. My throat went dry. It could be a glitch once, maybe twice on my phone, but if it was happening to my friends' phones too. Before I could reply, another text came in. From Adam. It's happening to me too. I stared at my phone, feeling chills. What the fuck? I got up and walked across the hallway to the girls' bathroom, every bit of my body shaking. I went to the sink and stared at my reflection. Deep bags lay under my eyes. My dark hair was tangled and uncombed. I didn't remember looking this bad earlier. I shut my eyes tight and shook my head, trying to shake the anxiety out of me. Then I opened my eyes. All the blood drained out of my face. There were 2 feet poking out from under one of the stall doors, wearing mint green flip-flops. Her flip-flops. The polish on her bare toes was chipped. Dark liquid pooled under her flip-flops. It slowly crept over the grout between the tiles, towards the floor drain, towards me. No. I whipped around. Nothing was there. I burst back into the dorm room, my heart hammering. I broke out in sobs, holding myself, shaking. This was the one time I hated not having roommates, hated that I was so introverted I made sure to get a single. No one to hear me. When I'd recovered slightly, I picked up my phone to text the group. The floor fell out under me when I saw the notification from the Photos app. Addie Hemsworth was tagged in every single one of my photos. The phone fell out of my hands and clattered to the floor. I closed my eyes and cried harder, unable to move. When I finally opened them, through my blurry tears, I noticed something different. There were 2 shiny scars slicing up my arms. I tore off my clothes. There were more. I counted every single one, but I already knew how many there would be. 17.
I asked an AI image generator to show me how I was going to die. The trouble started a week ago when I started playing around with one of those AI image generators that's been floating around on the internet. Normally I would stay away from such things because I have a deep resentment towards anything to do with AI or deep fakes and the like. I find it all repulsive. Once while scrolling through Instagram, I saw a Tom Cruise impressionist who had put a deep fake of the actor's face onto his own. It was startling and disturbing. It wasn't how much he looked like the real Tom Cruise that bothered me. It was how much he didn't look like the real thing. He looked like something wearing another man's face. But people in the comment sections were eating it up, and some even believed he was Tom Cruise. A lot of them believed it. Couldn't they see how fake it all was? And how wrong was it for that impressionist to put another person's face over his own? I can't help but think something bad is going to come out of all this one day for our society. Not that it matters much for me. I'm probably going to be dead soon. No, not probably. I'm sure of it. I can hear him outside. Even as I type this, the AI image generator hooked me. It was simple. You give it a prompt, and it will produce an image of that prompt. I had seen similar AI generators in the past, but what astounded me about this one is how specific the prompt could be. How the AI could produce almost anything you thought of in great detail. The images I saw floating online made me laugh, so I decided to bite the bullet. Sure, the Tom Cruise thing was creepy, as was the potential for that kind of technology in the wrong hands. But this was harmless fun, right? Not even remotely the same sort of thing. A stupid generator making stupid images for you. When I brought up the site, I sat long and hard thinking about the first prompt I wanted to give the generator. Then I remembered a story my father told me once about how when he was in college he visited Karachi, Pakistan with his world studies class. He told me that one night when he and his classmates were walking around the city, they came across a man who was playing chess with a dog, not pretending to play, but really playing with him. And my father told me that when they walked past the man again an hour later, that the man was shaking his head, that he looked beyond frustrated, defeated, but the dog looked happy, grinning even. The dog had apparently won. I typed "dog playing chess" into the generator and hit enter. It started loading, and after a few minutes the generator produced an image. It was an image of a dog playing chess. It even had a stupid smile on its face. I laughed. A stupid generator making stupid images. I told myself I would only spend a few more minutes playing. But those minutes quickly turned into an hour, and when I next looked at the clock, I realized I had spent almost 2.5 hours playing around with the generator. I won't waste your time by showing you all the images I created. They're as banal and dumb as you'd expect. I was about to close the tab when another prompt came into my head. If I told you this prompt came out of nowhere, that would be a lie. I know exactly where it came from. It came from the fact that about 3 months ago, one of my coworkers had died. His name was Jeremy. He was a good guy, and had even managed to get promoted in my office despite only working there for a couple months at that point. Jeremy was what you would call a real go-getter, the kind of guy who gave it 110% at all phases in his life. He had big aspirations to go along with the big cup of coffee he drank every morning, a cup that had "World's Best Jeremy" written on it, and all that was wiped out when he forgot to look both ways while crossing the road. He got taken out by a semi-truck. Jeremy's death struck me hard not just because it was the death of a fellow coworker, but because it made me realize how fragile life is. If a guy like Jeremy could get taken out, what did that mean for someone like me? How much borrowed time was a schmuck like me really on? If Jeremy had only looked both ways, or if he had somehow known what was going to happen before it happened. I typed "How am I going to die?" into the generator and hit enter. The generator started loading, and kept loading, and loading. It was taking a very long time, much longer than all the other prompts. I began to feel foolish, thinking I had finally managed to give it a broken prompt. I mean, of course I did. It had been a profoundly stupid prompt. There was no way the generator could know how. It produced an image. It was an image of an old man in a yellow hat. I laughed when I saw it, though it wasn't the same kind of laughter that the other generated images had gotten out of me. It was nervous laughter, scared laughter. Maybe you laughed too when you looked at the image, right? Be honest. It's okay. It's just a stupid generator producing stupid images, after all, right? Still, the image did bother me. The old man's frown, those sunken eyes, and that pale complexion. In the back of my head, I thought of that creepy Tom Cruise deepfake, how the comments were convinced of its legitimacy. I decided I had had enough and closed the tab. My prompt had simply confused the generator, and it had produced a random, incoherent image. That's all. It had been stupid for me to even ask the damn question in the first place. What had I expected? An actual answer? Obviously, an AI generator had no idea how I was going to die. I saw the old man the very next day. This was 6 days ago. I had been running errands downtown and had quickly forgotten about the image from the night before. It had faded away from my memory like a bad dream. It was an overcast day, and it looked like a really big storm was coming. I could see huge purple clouds in the distance. As I was walking to my car, I got this uncomfortable feeling that someone was watching me. ////. When I looked back, I saw the old man in the yellow hat. It was unmistakably him. He had the same bright yellow hat, the same deep frown, the pale skin, and those horrible sunken eyes. He was across the street, and he was staring at me. No, that's not it. He was glaring at me. I mean, really glaring at me. And his hands were opening and closing in a slow, violent motion. He began to walk towards me. He walked in a strange manner, like someone who had never walked before and was only just learning how, like something that was only pretending to be human, pretending to wear an old man's face. And I spotted a funny thing. No one else seemed to notice him. People walked past him without giving him a second glance. As he crossed the road, I thought for sure he was going to get hit by a car, but he weaved through traffic like some grotesque version of Frogger, and no driver paid him any mind. Not even a single honk. Morbidly, I thought of Jeremy getting hit by that semi. There was one other person that noticed him. It was a little girl, who looked right at the old man and then began crying. The little girl's mom looked up to see if she could spot what had caused her daughter to become so distraught, but not once did her eyes land on the old man. He walked past her like a ghost, and as he got closer to me, that deep frown began to turn upwards into a horrible grin. I dropped my groceries, got in my car, and drove straight home. On the way, I told myself I had only been seeing things. Had to have been seeing things. When I got home, I immediately locked all the doors and bolted from my room. I brought up the AI generator and again asked it, "How am I going to die?" I needed the generator to produce a new image. I needed it to show me that the image of the old man had just been a random image it had conjured. and that now it would do that again. It would create something completely random because it didn't understand my question, couldn't have possibly understood my question, couldn't have possibly shown me anything real, and certainly couldn't have shown me how I was going to die. It produced the same image of the old man. I asked again, same image. I asked it about 50 more times, and every time it was the same image of the old man in the yellow hat. Stupid generator making stupid images, right? Only that thing that had been walking towards me hadn't been stupid. That thing looked very real and very terrifying. I haven't left my house since that day. 2 nights ago, I saw the old man outside my bedroom window, glaring at me. Last night I heard him try the front door, then walk around back and try the back door. Today I brought up the generator and typed, "How do I stop the old man in the yellow hat?" It started loading, and then immediately replied, "Too much traffic. Try again later." But I know if I try again, I'll just get the same response. It's not going to tell me. I am paralyzed by fear, paralyzed by those sunken eyes and ghostly complexion. I can hear him outside right now as I type. He's been there the entire time. He's walking around the back of the house. There, he just tried the back door again.